Everyone, it's Dr. Glenn Vo. I'm super excited. This is the first time I've been here, the headquarters of Wallace Specialty Insurance. And of course, we have the founder, the main person, Kyle Wallace. Kyle, how are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for asking.
So I'm really excited. Obviously, I've worked with you for years, and you've been a big part of our community, and you've been a big part of the dental community in DFW. Now, I've told everyone in our group that, yes, he's based in DFW, but you work with everyone across the country. Now, before we get started, we do have also two other guests as well. Can you introduce our two other guests? They're taking a little rest here, but could you, Kyle, can you introduce our other guests?
Sure. This is our original office puppy. His name is Opie. OP for office puppy. He is now 8 years old. He was raised in the office. And over here is Rocky. Rocky's about to turn 3, and he's still a little rambunctious.
Yeah.
But hopefully they'll be chill.
So again, really great dogs. And again, I wanted to introduce you guys here, and maybe if you guys are, in town or whatnot, maybe you can meet these two other team members here. But Kyle, I just wanted to dive right in. And again, a lot of times people, they think about, okay, well, I got to get all these different coverages, insurance and whatnot. Why is it important to work with the right company and right agency? Because again, I can list out a bunch of reasons, but for those who are like, well, I'm just going to sign up with any company. Right. But there's a difference, right? There's a difference. Yes, there's the same products and whatnot, but every agency is different. Talk about why it's important to work with the right agency.
Well, they're the same products, as you say.
Yeah.
But all insurance products can be tailored to meet certain requirements of certain businesses, and it's the way they're designed. And one of the things that an insurance agent, a good insurance agent, needs to know is they need to know the business that they're insuring very well, or things get missed. So just like, people specialize in different areas, specialization gives you more knowledge, it gives you, greater experience and the ability to apply that experience and knowledge to your clientele. In our case, dentists. We've worked with dentists and dental practices. Well, now I'm actually, 28 years.
So 28 years you work with dental professionals.
That's all I've done for 28 years. And I feel like I know the business of dentistry really well. And I've, just like I've evolved with the dental community and the practice of dentistry from the days of small, single owner operated practices to now the evolution into like larger DSOs. And larger group practices. So yes, working with an agent who understands the business that you're in can guarantee that you're going to be protected correctly.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because again, there's this misconception where they're like, well, I'm just going to go to any agency and they offer those same insurance and they could tailor make it for the dental. But I'm glad that you brought up the fact that your firm has worked with dental professionals exclusively for over 20 years, right?
Right.
Which means that you've pretty much seen almost everything when it comes to like issues that dental professionals have had over the years.
Every once in a while, I still get surprised. I really do. And I'm real quick to point that out when somebody asks me a question. I'll say, okay, 28 years, I've never been asked that question.
Wow.
Or I've never seen that situation, but it doesn't happen very often. Not anymore.
Yeah. Now, again, just to let you guys know, I've been a client with Kyle's for years, and there's been times where I just called you up, like on a weekend, and you called me back, and I was dealing with a situation with patient's not happy, I got to do a refund, I want to make sure I'm not going to get sued and whatnot, and you walked me through it. And I can say this, that I don't think any other agency does those type of things. So Kyle, why is it important for you to pick up the phone when people call you on the weekend and tell you about an issue they're having with a particular patient, or going through some different issues in their practice? Why is that so important to you and so important to this agency?
Really, I think early on so now we do everything, as you said, all the products that a dentist or dental practice needs. But early on, I started specializing in malpractice insurance.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you think, like I did at the time, well, I'm selling a product that they need, I'm trying to find a good price, and that's kind of the end of it. But it wasn't. People call and they say, heart-wrenching stories. This just happened to me. What do I do? And when I was a lot younger, I was like, well, God, I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah.
Let's call the company and find out. But I realized that wasn't a good solution. The real solution was to learn a lot about risk management, learn a lot about dentistry, clinical dentistry, even, emotional intelligence and psychology to be able to say when somebody calls, okay, calm down, let's talk about this, let's talk it through, let's get calm, let's see if we can manage the situation. And why it's important is because there was no real bridge between the malpractice insurance policy and turning it into a claims department that immediately looked at it like a pending lawsuit. There was no bridge there. And the bridge is just common sense. Common sense managing of the situation to stop it in its tracks so that it does not evolve. And so for me, that's really been the greatest pleasure I've gotten out of the business is being able to get on the phone with somebody, have them be very worried about being sued or all the things that go through your mind. I'm going to get turned into the board. I'm going to lose my license. I'm going to lose my house, and take that and manage that into something that when you get done, my client is like saying, okay, I feel a lot better. I think I can handle this now.
I've been that person too, so just want to let everyone know.
And so for me, that's the part of the job that, it sounds corny, but that's the part of the job that's been most gratifying. Obviously we've been very successful, and I feel blessed for that. But that is a job that a lot of jobs have been in. It's a bigger business. A lot of jobs have been delegated to other people, but that's the one I've kept for myself.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, let me just off the top of your head, and again, I know there's been so many of those phone calls, like from me and other dentists that just calling you for advice. But out of all the situations where someone had called you and they felt like they were going to get sued, and you just talked it through, how often is it that they talk it through and nothing ever happens? Nothing bad ever happens. It was just like, you talk it through, let's do these things. You've coached me on the different ways to approach a patient that was upset. And honestly, I could say that most of the time, actually all the times that we've talked, it ended up being like very cordial, like, hey, we'll do a refund, that's it. And nothing ever happened. I didn't get reported, I didn't get sued or anything like that. So all those times when you get the calls, off the top of your head, I know there's so many calls you had, but how often is it, percentage-wise, that a lot of times after you talk to them, nothing really ever happened?
It's most of the time.
Yeah, most
to
of the time.
To be real honest with you, probably less than 10% of the situations evolve into either a board complaint or a lawsuit. Lawsuits are, very uncommon, believe it or not. It's not very common to be sued. You can receive a letter from an attorney requesting records. That starts the process, but so many of those just go nowhere. So one takeaway, if somebody's watching this and thinking about this, is that if you have a tense situation, combative situation with a patient, the chances that that's going to evolve into something bad, where your mind goes with it, are very, very low.
Well, one thing that you've always told me that always stuck out was that you don't want to really escalate the situation, right? You don't want to escalate the situation. You want to be and really think things out. And I think that advice, I know that advice has helped me, and I know that advice probably helped a lot of other doctors, where a lot of times whenever lawsuits come up, the patient's either really upset or they're very passionate about something. And you know how if you fight fire with fire, you just get this big inferno, right? You're supposed to put out a fire with some water or some ice or whatnot. And so, again, I think that's so helpful. And I just want to segue into the fact that you do a lot of speaking, you do a lot of seminars and whatnot. Why is that such an important part of? Obviously, important part is you want to coach and work with these dentists, but why is the education part so important to Wallace?
Well, first of all, obviously it gets our name out there. So it's a little bit self-serving. You know, we get out there, we meet people, they know who we are, they come to us. So, you know, the advertising, promotional aspect of that is important. And I don't want to sugarcoat that. But it's also important that, you know, that the dental community is exposed to, you know, simple concepts and simple ideas that can protect them. You know, one of the things that you know I came to understand very early in my career, especially in the old days of they're not really old days because we still have a lot of single dentists who own practice, single owner operators, but in the day when that was exclusively the thing, I didn't realize until I got involved how vulnerable you guys can be. You know, how easy it is to one day have everything be going great and the next day, you know, a catastrophe can hit. So, you know, learning things through speaking engagements, not just me, but other people who support the dental community, you know, is kind of free advisors to help you, you know, escape some of those pitfalls. You know, it started with malpractice, but, you know, for example, let's take Texas, for example. Here in Texas, dentists are very well protected by tort reform. Back in 2003, Texas passed tort reform, and they limited non-economic damages to $250,000. So what that meant is, as a dentist, if you were sued, you could not be found liable for more than $250,000 of non-economic damages. Economic damages, the provable damages, are still unlimited, but those are pretty much limited by situation, you know, future medical expenses, extent of injury, that kind of thing. It was those non-economic damages, the hot coffee spill from McDonald's where the jury awards $20 million that you worry about, and that's what's limited to $250,000. So there's not a lot of risk there. And by the way, real interesting, it was $250,000 in 2003. It still is.
Wow.
They haven't raised it in all that time. So that was great, and giving the dental community, you know, that type of education, that type of advice provides peace of mind. But then there were other things. I mean, you and I have talked about, you know, what would happen if a dentist was injured in a car wreck and couldn't practice. And there's simple fixes for that people don't really understand as well.
Something, and just to let you guys know, something that I'm actually working with one of his associates with is, you know, there's risks that you have in your practice. And again, I want you guys to understand it. Initially, when I started working with Kyle, it was all about the malpractice. Right. But they have literally coverage and products that can help not only the dentist himself, but the dental and also his family as well. And so one thing that I've been working on is just mitigating my risks. Risks being, well, you know, what if my kids are still young, but what if my son just when he gets his license, he just plows into a bunch of people, right? And they're not going to go after my son; they're going to come after me. So different things like that. So let's talk about that. Something that you guys have been working on with me. That again, like, you know, most dentists say, okay, well, you know, I understand I got malpractice and I got liability, but there's a liability outside of your practice that involves your life that could be just as, or maybe even more devastating.
Well, you know, you're right. And we've always talked about, you know, people talk about an umbrella policy. Yeah. You know, a personal umbrella policy. Yeah. You've got your car insurance, you've got your home insurance, your car insurance has your auto liability, your home insurance has basically your public liability. And those are great. But, you know, as a doctor, something happens, you get in an accident, one of your children get in an accident, you know, a personal injury attorney finds out that you're a doctor and they start thinking, hey, money, and you're sued. There are no limitations on that. It's where we talk about tort reform for malpractice. There are no limitations there. It is what it is.
And that's really scary. When you had talked to me about that, I never thought about that, because I think a lot of times as dental professionals starting out, we're just thinking, okay, we got to grow our practice. We got to make sure everything's protected there. We got to make sure we're protected with disability, just in case we get hurt. But then we don't realize that everything surrounding us changes, right? Lifestyle changes. You got kids doing different things. You put yourself more at risk. And so we forget that before we're just trying to protect ourselves because, hey, we're the engine here. And then we don't realize that everything else is going around, and you got to provide protection for that as well.
Well, and let's take that one step further, because it's great to think of, hey, okay, I want to protect my stuff. I want to protect my savings, my real estate, my cars and stuff. And if my 16-year-old gets in an accident and I get sued, I want to make sure there's enough money there to cover it so I don't lose, any of my personal wealth.
Yeah.
And that's great. Most people understand that concept, and you can, and for most successful dentists, we recommend, at least a $5 million umbrella and really a $10 million umbrella. Yeah. But here's a cool thing that people don't really know. And that's that if you have the right type of umbrella coverage, you can get an umbrella policy that has what we call uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. And the reason that's important is that if you're hit, personally, you, Glenn, if you're rear-ended by somebody really bad and you have a spine, neck injury and you can't practice, what are you going to do? The issue being that, okay, so what do we know about people who drive out on the road here in Texas or anywhere else for that matter? Mm-hmm. Probably 15% on average don't have any car insurance at all.
True.
And most states' minimum bodily injury limit that you have to carry to be legal is $25,000. A lot of people, if they carry insurance, that's the limit they carry. So if somebody rear ends you and you're injured and you can't practice, how far is $25,000?
Not very far at all.
Okay, so we have an umbrella program that's specifically for dentists. It's a white glove umbrella program. You can get in that program up to $5 million of uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. Wow. And so what that means is if you're injured in an auto accident that's not your fault, and the person who hit you is uninsured, or they have that $25,000 limit, or even if they have a $100,000 limit, what have you, once their insurance is exhausted, your umbrella is going to kick in and become their insurance, up to $5 million. And that's actually going to go somewhere for you. And in our program, the interesting thing is 52% of the claims that we see are uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. They're dentists that are injured in car accidents that are not their fault. So 52% of the claims that we're seeing in that program aren't, somebody's child hitting, having a bad car accident and the dentist being sued. They're actually the dentist being hit and injured and unable to practice for some period of time or permanently.
I mean, that's obviously that's eye-opening things because again, most of us understand that there's a lot of people out there that's driving without insurance. Right. But what's baffling is the $25,000 limit, right?
Exactly.
And it's legal, right? They have the $25,000, and again, that's right. $25,000 is not gonna, especially if you can't practice anymore. Right. And hopefully you have other coverage, right? But again, disability, if you think about disability, it takes a few months to kick in, right? There's other things. So again, we work so hard and try to protect everything in our practice, and we don't realize that, risk is also actually more risk when you step outside the doors of your practice.
Well, you can, and and that's the thing. The risk is there. Most people, and a lot of your followers, they have a personal umbrella policy. They've been smart. Hopefully they've gotten some good advice, and they have a personal umbrella policy. It may not be $5 million, it may be $1 million, but I'll bet you if they ask the agent if it's got uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage on it, 95% of them are going to find out it doesn't, because that's something that is only
you guys listen up to that right there.
Of special programs, white glove type insurance. Now, and you mentioned disability, and that's a good point. I hope everybody has it. What we found in just our client base, which is 6,500 strong now, is that if people have it, they're not insured up to the maximum that they can. They're
Now, why is that?
Well,
Why is
first
that?
of all, disability insurance companies will only insure 85%, up to 85% of your income, because they do not want to create a situation where more of a moral hazard, where you feel better, being disabled and be able to collect the same thing. So they have a limit. Now, disability insurance is super expensive. You know that.
Yeah.
So, so most people hit a point of pain and they stop increasing it, or they just don't think about increasing it, or they don't have the option to increase without a medical without a medical exam,
like a waiver or something.
And they've reached a point in their life where they have medical issues and they're not going to be able to get it anyway. But I haven't found too many people that carry over, say, $10,000 per month benefit. So that's $120,000 a year of benefit, offset for taxes, and so maybe it's the equivalent of an income of $225,000, $230,000 a year. I'm thinking most dentists are making more than that right now. Yeah. So looking at some of these other alternatives, the other alternatives are group disability in your practice, but there's just a lot of little tricks, and I wouldn't say tricks. There's a lot of little strategies. I hate to call it, tricks. What a dumb word to say about insurance. There are strategies that we can follow in insurance to actually maybe not quite make insurance cool, but at least make it something relevant. Yeah, and I think that's more than just an expense.
I think that's super, and that's why I and so many people in the DFW area and now it's nationwide love working with you, Kyle, because again, it's not as getting coverage is not as easy as like, okay, I'm just gonna get this insurance from. It's like not like car insurance, right? Like I'm getting auto insurance. That's it. Right. There's so many factors, and something that you brought up as well is that I remember when I first got my first policy for disability, and it was based on what I was making at that time. Right. And the one thing you reminded me years later is like, hey, your situation's kind of changed a little bit. Would you like more coverage? And I didn't even think about it, because what happens is we get so busy in our practice, in our lives, right? And I'm almost 20 years in, and it seems like yesterday I just graduated. And so you blink in a blink of an eye, 10 years has gone by. Well, 10 years, a lot has changed. And so again, a little tidbit there is that if the person you're working with, if they're not staying in touch with you and making sure you're getting the right coverage in your particular situation, you might want to talk to someone, I don't know, like this person here who always tries to keep up with things. Yeah. Now, Kyle, I want to pivot a little bit. And again, I think that a lot of times people are like, okay, well, you're helping all the single practices, which you do. But a lot of these single practice owners, over time, they get multiple locations. We have a mutual friend who, when you started working with them, they had a couple of locations, and now they have 43 locations. But for those who have bigger practices, how do you work with them? Because again, it's a different. They do need coverage, but it's a different need when they have multiple practices. Can you explain how you work with these bigger practices, like our mutual friend with the 43 locations? Right.
And in fact, our biggest client is pushing 250 locations now. Wow. And it's a different animal, and it's a different process. So now in the agency, we have our bread and butter, which is the single owner-operator practice, or a couple of locations. That very important to us. I mean, that is our bread and butter. But we've had to, create a separate department for the DSOs, and a separate team that works with them, because the risks are different and the type of insurance that they need is different. So when we're working with that, we're working with the different companies to provide master policies for the various types of coverage: master property liability policies, and master malpractice policy, master cyber policy, master workers' comp, but also things like management liability. That's something that we're not going to have in a smaller practice. Yeah. We're not going to need directors and officers liability, real robust employment practices liability policy, fiduciary liability, things like that. So we have a team here in the agency, and also part of our larger agency as a whole, who we work with the DSO clients with. A lot of times we'll assign an individual claims person. We have an individual cyber liability attorney. We have a management liability attorney who works. So we work as a team with the management team of the larger clients to make sure that again, that we cover all the bases.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I wanted to let everyone know there. So for those who have multiple group practices, I'm friends with a lot of you guys. You know, there's levels to your business, right? At certain level, you needed to work with certain professionals. You were doing certain things, but once you get to a certain size, you really need an entire team to take care of your entire team. Kyle's worked with those individuals. In fact, he's worked with people like, again, we have a mutual friend who started at 3 locations. Now they're 43. He's worked with them every step of the way. So again, keep that in mind. If whoever you're working with, or maybe you're doing it yourself, hey, I like to do a lot of things myself. But there's certain things I just have to let the professionals do, right? Or else you get hurt, right? In this case, you might get hurt from a risk standpoint. Now, Kyle, I like to joke around that whenever I have an issue when it comes to insurance, risk, anything, even business related, look, if Kyle doesn't have the answer, he always knows someone. I have like this special phone number. I call it like his bat line. I just call him there. For those who are watching and they're like, okay, I'm not sure if I want to work, but I definitely have some questions. I just want to see if it's a good fit, or maybe I have some questions for a particular situation. Can we extend that bat line to our followers?
We can. I might have to holler at Aaron to get
we'll get
the bat
that
line number.
We'll get that. Yeah, he answers the bat line. Yeah, he doesn't worry about the number, but he answers that. But can they reach out to you? Can they ask you some questions and whatnot? Now, as far as you know, we reach all across the country. Obviously, we have a lot of people in Texas. Look, if you're in Texas, that's a no-brainer. Kyle can help you. But as far as the whole country goes, what like how many states? Like, again, I know things are a little different there, but like how many of the states that you can work with as far as coverage goes?
We probably have clients in 35 states.
Okay.
But we can work with clients in all 50 states.
Okay.
That's not an issue. Easily done. We generally, if a client comes to us from a state that we're not currently licensed in, we just get licensed in that state. It's easy enough.
Now, I do have a couple of friends who have asked me to come out to Hawaii to do a CE event, and I just want to let you know who you are. If you need if you need a great team to help you when it comes to your insurance and whatnot, I'm sure Kyle will be up to flying out to Honolulu
office visit for sure.
and do an office visit. So for those who are there, my friends out in Hawaii, we can do that too. Right. So Kyle, again, we'll get all that information so they can reach out. But thank you so much for jumping on. It's always a pleasure to sit down and talk to you, and so happy to meet the other two important team members right here. We'll make sure we get a picture so you guys can see like these great looking team members here. But Kyle, thank you so much for jumping on. Guys, I'm going to get you the bat number. Call anytime. He's here to help.
Thank you. I appreciate it.